Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
And I'm Gus Sorola.
And just when you thought you'd heard the end of the saga of Konami versus Kojima, they pulled another Metal Gear Solid plot twist right out of thin air.
It looks like Kojima's been engaging in a little bit of tactical espionage action of his own, because it's just been discovered that one of Konami's high-ranking executives has now joined Kojima Productions as president of Kojima's new studio.
Okay, prediction that the top comment is going to be, who'd want him? Well, it will be now. Looks like those Konami tears from the cute little Photoshop cup are tasting more and more like sweet, sweet revenge.
They're getting saltier all the time. The suit in question is Shinji Hirano, the former corporate officer at Konami Digital Entertainment HQ, president of Konami Europe, and executive vice president of Konami America.
Dude's got a lot of titles.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with the business world, all those C's and the E's and the VPs mean he was fairly important to the company. And in fact, he'd been with Konami more than 11 years before jumping ship to Kojima's new outfit. That would have made him a president at the time that Kojima was a vice president of the company. So, pretty safe to say they weren't two of the ones at odds over Metal Gear Solid 5's development. Probably.
This information was discovered where else but LinkedIn.
Yeah,
when a writer at website
where all the best news comes from.
When a writer at the website The Coalition discovered that Hirano had recently updated his profile to include his brand new employment at Kojima Productions. According to his updated profile, Hirano started his new gig sometime in November, so he's been there fairly quietly for at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, do you think they just phoned him out of Konami? And then they brainwashed him into Kojima's army the way they do in Metal Gear Solid?
No.
Maybe they're employing sheep too.
Oh.
Folding sheep was fun, like goats and stuff.
Goats.
Hirano's new title at Kojima Productions is president, a role that makes him responsible for managing extremely talented creative teams as one single entity and providing the leadership to make companies successful as one of the greatest creative studios in the world.
So yeah, he's not just going to the company to make Kojima's coffee. And considering Hirano also hosted E3 press conference for Konami in the past, it's a pretty big acquisition for Kojima and team.
So really just all the cool folks from Konami are coming over. But of course this isn't the first Konami employee Kojima's spirited away to join his team. It was only natural he would grab some of his buddies from his days at Konami, and he's done quite a bit of poaching prior to Hirano to build this new Konami core.
They just celebrated their 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, they did?
Yeah. So back when Kojima Productions first launched, there were 3 other employees besides Kojima. A personal assistant for Kojima, plus art director Yoji Shinkawa, who did work on Metal Gear and Zone of the Enders, and Kenichiro Imaizumi, a former producer from the Metal Gear Solid series as well.
And then since then, they've only added to the roster with a few members of the old Silent Hill team from Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo. Apparently, Team Silent was all made up of developers who'd failed at other Konami projects who were meant to leave Konami until the first Silent Hill game turned out to be a huge success.
Silent Hill, you say? Kojima hooked up with them for PT, and now it looks like a bunch ended up leaving anyway since Konami decided to cancel that project, so good work, Konami.
Or as Guillermo del Toro says, fuck Konami. That dude makes no bones about it. He's not happy. In particular, looks like the directors of both Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill 4 ended up joining Kojima at his new venture, and there's no telling how many former members of his old Kojima Productions team in LA came out to heed the call as well. I mean, if you blew into a conch, they'd all assemble. That's
absolutely.
what happens.
That's what's going on. It's awesome.
As long as it doesn't get too Lord of the Flies up in there.
So he's already got quite the pedigree at the new place, and that's before you even include his other old PT buddies, Norman Reedus and Guillermo del Toro, who've now been added to Death Stranding as well.
I mean, Norman Reedus is a good get. I saw him guest star in Charmed. All told, they've got quite a big anti-Konami beef brewing over there now. Hopefully they can get in some sweet rumbles. Del Toro in particular, I mean, he's been very, very active, particularly right after the Game Awards with the whole fuck Konami thing. So that's good times.
And it'll be interesting to see if taking so many employees from Konami is something that could backfire on Kojima from a business standpoint. In addition to non-compete clauses, the video game and technology sectors, it's also fairly common for companies to go after former employees for poaching current employees.
Even if it's not in his contracts that he can't solicit employment to former coworkers, that usually won't stop companies from trying to flex their muscles and be in dicks anyway, especially now that Kojima's the head of a small independent studio and can't afford a prolonged legal battle. That's a way that a lot of bigger established companies with more cash to burn can kind of protect their turf. Konami's got a lot of pachinko money to blow on frivolous court cases. Kojima doesn't have that right now.
These are the same issues that prompted Trendy Entertainment to go after Jeremy Stieglitz, the co-founder of Studio Wildcard, in a lawsuit earlier this year over his involvement with the game Ark Survival Evolved. Stieglitz was under a year-long no-compete when he left Trendy, during which time he allegedly helped create Ark, founded Studio Wildcard, and dipped into Trendy's rosters.
Yeah, that might not sound like a huge deal, but it became a pretty big deal to Trendy once Ark became a hit. The original lawsuit sought over $600 million in damages. They eventually settled for $40 million. Still a lot of money, and it's also why we ended up with premium DLC while the game's still in early access.
So hopefully Kojima's waited out any portion of his contract that might prohibit him from hooking up with talent from Konami. Those types of waiting periods usually amount to years though, and it's barely been a year since he first formed Kojima Productions.
However, since he's got Sony's backing for Death Stranding as a PlayStation 4 exclusive, it's also entirely possible that Sony is dealing with any legal fees on Kojima's behalf, or at the very least trying to assist with arbitration. That's one of the nice benefits of signing an exclusivity deal. Even if it cuts off potential audience that you'd get on other platforms, you get a lot of help that you wouldn't have otherwise.
So lawyers save the day. For once. I mean, that's not usually what happens.
We need them.
Yeah.
They're kind of important to navigating all these crazy business waters. So what do you guys think of Kojima nabbing a high-ranking executive right out of Konami's grasp? Let us know in the comments.
For future updates on Konami versus Kojima, like this video and subscribe to The Know. You think that, like, Kojima will have like a second studio that's like Konami spelled backwards, like Fox and XOF?
Maybe he'll like create fake companies, like create like fake evil companies in Death Stranding, and it'll be like, hold on, Imanok.